Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Network Buzz, a Lake Tech podcast. We got Phil back in the room. Phil, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Mike?
Good. That means technical content. I know we've been doing a lot of marketing and a lot of stuff recently, so I apologize to all the tech nerds. I'll call you nerds, because I like being called a nerd. But yeah, thanks everybody for jumping in here, watching us here this one episode. We got some updates to supply here to start. First of all, you don't have to look at our shiny heads anymore because we are finally on the streaming platforms that you would choose. Your Apple Podcasts, your Spotify.
Woohoo.
Finally made that happen.
Yes.
No longer have to turn on YouTube and have it run.
Does that mean I can shut my camera down and then I can do whatever with my beard? It doesn't matter.
There's a video component to it, but at least it's on Apple Podcasts. No, that's good. That's very cool. We're finally on there, so make it easier to listen to. You don't have to look at us anymore. Just listen to our voices. I still have to apologize, but yeah, that's very cool. Very cool step to make there. And yeah, it's been a busy time.
It has been.
All the events. It's kind of event season, I guess, between we had Brainstorm, and we talked about the Brainstorm. Tim was on talking about that. And so that was last week. And
we had Detroit a couple weeks before that.
Right. Going to Mackle. And then you were in Canada doing a wireless presentation.
I was, yeah.
So yeah, well, what do you want to say? Brainstorm? How was Brainstorm?
Brainstorm was good, yeah. I actually gave a presentation there as well. Did Wi-Fi 7, so it's a common theme here. I'm doing Wi-Fi 7 everywhere, but we've got the content and we're trying to, push not push what it is, but, educate people on where it's at right now and what its capabilities are. So I've been doing all those presentations anywhere. And Brainstorm was great. I had a full room. Lots of good questions, customers, non-customers coming around, and it was just an all-around good event.
Is Wi-Fi 7, we talk about it so much, and I'm sure everyone just is curious, is that like the standard going forward? Is everybody digging in, trying to find out if that's the case, or are they just general awareness?
It's just general awareness. I mean, standards change all the time. Wi-Fi 8 will be the big thing on our podcast next year, a year and a half from now. So yeah, standards change, and it's just keeping everybody educated on what comes with the standard, what's the benefits, that type of thing.
Cool. And then you were in Canada.
I almost got stuck in Canada.
Oh, God.
I did. Passport issues.
We're not getting political. What was the issue?
I forgot my passport.
You forgot it?
Forgot it.
Well, that's an issue.
Yeah, we got about 3 hours outside of Cleveland, and I realized I didn't have my passport, so we sweet-talked our way across the border, surprisingly enough. Again, not talking politics, but you wouldn't expect we could do that. But there's no way I'm getting out of Canada without a passport.
I wouldn't have left. It's like you don't know getting back in.
So I live in Canada for a while. I mean, it's a friendly crowd up there. I like those guys.
Oh, it's also May. It's not January.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
My family went on a little trip down to Cancun, Mexico with my brother, sister-in-law, and their kids. A whole good little family vacation, and we got to get passports for the kids.
Okay, cool.
To do that.
Nice.
But in doing that, we went to go to the library, submit application, birth certificate, very official stuff.
Sure.
And then when we had it a month before the trip happened, and then that Wednesday before we left on Friday, the Wednesday night, I'm entering in passport information, and it popped up of birthday does not match for my sons.
Okay.
For my sons.
Yeah.
He's 6. And so we called passport office. I drove to Detroit the next day, 24 hours before we left, to get the passport changed to his correct birthday.
Wow.
Right
on the wire.
Anxiety.
So you weren't going to just sneak your way into Mexico and then have it fixed on the way back out?
I'm not messing with that. I'm not messing with that.
Well, I'm glad you got it fixed. It's funny. We both dealt with passport things.
Well, you forgot it.
Well, still dealing with a passport issue, the lack of one.
Sweet talking your way across borders. I'm driving to because that's the nearest passport office. It was Detroit, Cincinnati, or Buffalo.
Yeah,
so I was driving to Detroit to get that taken care of. And it was like, well, maybe we can do this. I hope we can do this. And I'm like, man, I'm getting on a flight in the morning. Help me out here.
All right, the public service message here is get all your documents in line, before you go anywhere. They're important.
Anyway, sorry, personal tangent. I apologize for that, but it was a wild 48 hours. Anyway, moving on. Other events, and of course, for us, OHEC coming up next week, Higher Education Ohio events, big time conference for the higher education community. Very excited to be a diamond sponsor that Lake Tech is, and have our table and talk to all our customers throughout the state of Ohio that'll be there, for those 3 days next week. May 14th, 15th, and 16th. That'll be an awesome 3 days.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the other, instead of me presenting this time, seing others present, which is always great.
There's some good stuff.
Good sessions.
I went through all the session schedule, kind of pinned a few for all of us to take a look at, and entertainment, and spending that time. Those events are so great. Getting the whole community together, and it's talking about what's working, what's not working, what's new, all this stuff with all the universities that attend. It's really, really good stuff. I always look forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And then we got Discover, Discover after that.
And now we're going to turn the tables. You're going to be presenting at Discover. It's going to be great.
I am not presenting. Dear God, I'm not like monologuing through this stuff.
Oh, okay.
I will be on stage. This is very cool. I will be on stage with John Wilson and Sal and talking about HPE GreenLake for networking from the vendor perspective in front of a room of probably a couple hundred people, and I'm not nervous at all.
That's called
it'll be
presenting,
really
Mike.
cool. I know. I'm sweating talking about it. It'll be a lot of fun getting on stage and just kind of talking through our experience with GreenLake Network as a Service, how it helps customers, the features of the program, where it fits, where it doesn't fit. But the flexibility it provides customers and the advantages it can do and just help everyone from a financial perspective, support perspective, like all the things that it does. It's a very useful program, at least in the higher ed community so far. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. Won't be nerve-wracking at all.
You'll be fine.
That's all the event stuff coming up. It's really, really cool stuff. Lots going on. And now we'll dive into the technical aspect of it with you in the room, Phil. We're going to talk about randomized MAC addresses here today, as that's something that's becoming more standard. So let's build this up. Let's tee this up for everybody. So let's start very basic, very quickly. MAC address. What's a MAC address on a device, and why is it important, and how is it used?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So MAC addresses are in the networking world, this thing called the OSI model, which puts everything in layers, all the way from physical hardware like the radios in your phone to what we call MAC address at layer 2. So it's a unique identifier on every device that's sold in the world that uniquely identifies that device to the network at a layer 2 level. So
it's not a serial number. It's a MAC address.
Yeah, you might as well think of it as a serial number. It is a MAC address, and as we're going to talk about, they can be changed, they can be programmed, they can be randomized, but it comes shipped with a unique identifier unique to that device.
Okay, very cool. So we got unique to that device, so I assume tracking-wise and probably from the NAC perspective, that's mostly how it's used in a network?
Yeah, well, so it's used for communications in general. Okay. So, in networking world, the layer 2 MAC address ties to a layer 3 IP address, all the way up the stack, so that we can route and we know how to get information back to that end client, the unique identifier that represents that client to that IP, et cetera. So yes, it is also used for tracking devices for legitimate purposes as well.
Okay. Gotcha. So again, we talked about this is about randomizing MAC address. So they're becoming more randomized. Like what's going on here? And is it BYOD devices? Is it all PC? Like what? Talk through that.
Yeah. So several years back, the IEEE standards body had come up with. I'm not going to cite the RFC, but they came up with a method for a device to literally randomize its MAC address, and they did this in the to try to anonymize devices as they go from network to network. So like if I have a device and I'm going into Walmart and I connect to the guest network there, that MAC address is known to Walmart, and that MAC address could be shared with whatever public repository saying this is Phil, or at least this is his MAC address. And as I go from Walmart to Kohl's to the supermarket to wherever, I have the same MAC address no matter where I'm at. So whoever is capable of gathering this information can track where I have been, what I've been doing. So the randomizing MAC addresses in the early days randomized my MAC address per SSID. So when I connected to the Walmart SSID, I had a unique MAC address. When I went over to Sam's Club, or pretty much the same thing. When I would go over to the supermarket, I would have a different MAC address.
Well,
so now
everybody's been at Costco and there's no cell reception.
Yeah, okay,
so you
there
have
you go.
To join the network.
Yes.
Otherwise, I can't even I'm in the car with the kid. I can't even text my wife like what's going on or anything. Like there's literally no reception.
Yeah. Yep. So you're kind of forced to connect to the wireless network.
Yep.
So again, in the early days of this, we're now at least getting randomized MAC addresses per SSID. And your device remembers that MAC address on that SSID.
Okay.
So next time you go in there, it's the same MAC address. But then I go over to the supermarket and I connect their SSID. That was the randomized MAC address I had come up with when I initially connected to that, say 2 weeks ago.
So that assists you to automatically joining networks.
It doesn't necessarily. I mean, captive portal mechanisms are to assist with getting on the network and getting through like a terms of service captive portal, which then the authentication systems, the NAC systems within an organization say, hey, this is Phil. Here's his MAC address. It's probably randomized. I don't care. The purpose is not to see if it's randomized or not, but to cache you into the system. So the next time
Right.
you come on site,
That's
you
what I
don't-
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the captive portal doesn't have to pop. It sees my MAC address connect to the network. It says, oh, I know he's already accepted my terms of service. I'm going to go ahead and let him on the network.
Mm-hmm.
And then that also translates to, say, students with BYOD devices and employees and, in companies where they're onboarding their devices through some sort of captive portal to remember that MAC address, same exact purpose. So you don't have to keep on being confronted with that portal.
Right.
So that you
Convenience
can,
at that
the
point.
convenience at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So kind of went through. But why is this a problem?
Right. So it's a problem because now we're randomizing MAC addresses on the same SSID.
Okay.
So I said every new SSID I connect to, I get a random MAC address. So again, Walmart, the supermarket, Kohl's, whatever, I have different MAC addresses on all those. So now let's focus on just walking into Walmart. And I'm picking on Walmart. I don't even know if they have a captive
Big
portal.
box
I don't
store,
connect to
it's
it. Yes,
inserted here.
yes, exactly. So we defined the purpose was that when I click through that terms of service, it remembers my MAC address, so I don't have to pop to that captive portal anymore. Well, now we're going to randomize the MAC address on that exact same SSID every 2 weeks, or potentially every week, or every day. Not so much a problem for the guest captive portals because you're not there. You don't really need to be remembered. It's more of a problem for employees and students, especially students in dorms, where they've gotten their devices on the network, whether it's their personal device, well, usually their personal devices, so that they can continue to connect throughout the school year. And the same thing, it caches that MAC address. So now you're shaking your head. You can see the real problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you have to. And you hear it all the time of anybody who's not IT works anywhere. They're like, oh, I got to re-enter my login. I got to log in again.
It's horrible, and it's really a big problem again for
And
students.
they view it as a problem, like the network is a problem because they have to log in.
Oh yeah, they don't know what's going on.
It's like multi-factor.
Yeah.
Everybody complains about multi-factor. all the time.
Sure. So yeah, the big problem is, again, I'm going to focus on students and universities in their dorms because a very common method to get students' personal devices on the network is to pop a portal or allow them to go to a portal to register their device, and they're registering it based on its MAC address. So you can imagine now if I've got, say 5 devices and I've registered all those MAC addresses, and now I have my iPhone and some other newer smart devices that are randomizing that every 2 weeks, those devices aren't going to connect to the network anymore. I got to go re-register that device with now its new randomized MAC address. And that's a problem. And there's lots.
All devices? I mean, you mentioned like a student, in a res hall who's got like, the Xbox and the Google Home and everything else, and their phones, of course, and everything else that's attached to it. Is it all devices?
It could be. So the standards body is, has this new standard that says, hey, manufacturers of operating systems, you can use this new capability to randomize MAC addresses. So Apple's chosen to do it. I don't remember which release it came out with, but my device by default randomizes my MAC address every 2 weeks. Android's doing the same thing. Windows has the capability. They're not automatically turning it on, but maybe as of Windows 11 25H2, it's going to be by default. They're going to start randomizing every 2 weeks. So, other devices, let's say we're running, I don't know, some Linux build on a Raspberry Pi that's an HVAC sensor. Maybe they will never do it. Who knows? But maybe they will. It's all up to the operating system manufacturers on whether or not they want to take advantage of that.
Yeah,
we'll call it feature.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody on their personal devices, everybody's their phone, obviously, to authenticate. But when you got to enter a MAC address in from an Xbox where there's no login and password,
right, and
you're doing this, like MAC addresses are not short.
Yeah.
So that's just a giant pain in the butt.
Yeah, and there's some things that help with it, like if you could get to the captive portal on your Xbox, you can populate that field, but some devices you can't do that with. Think about your Amazon Alexa.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're all gaming systems. I keep saying Xbox, but PS5 and Switch, like everything from there. But and I'm sure other devices too. It just
Yep. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a problem. There are lots of things that we can do to address the situation, and I think that's we should dive into those.
Okay. How do we fix it, Phil?
Thanks
for letting me talk.
That's a great question, Mike. So, the most basic thing you can do is you can go into your device and shut off the randomized MAC addresses. Either shut off the rotation. Yeah, there's a toggle. I can go right on my phone, shut off the randomization, shut off every 2 weeks, or just shut it off completely and go to the built-in MAC address that the device was shipped
Well, that's
with.
easy.
Yeah, if you know how to do it.
Sounds easy.
Yeah. So it is easy for tech-savvy people, but, some people that really don't know their tech and, where's that setting at? And, I'm going to focus again on university students, some that, again, may not be tech-savvy. They're calling the help desk. They're like, hey, the help desk has got to walk them through, whatever the system is that's randomized the MAC address and showing them how to turn that off. And if they forget that network and then recreate that network, it's going to turn that randomization right back on.
Okay.
I don't know why they would forget it, but, people play with their devices and do things. So, it's going to escalate calls to the help desk. It's frustrating for the end user. So really manually shutting off the randomized MAC address is not the best approach. There are way better approaches for it.
Okay. And before I ask you the other approaches, because when you have your mobile device, you have your phone, because you're on your phone every single day for how long? I hate when that reminder comes up on Sunday, but this is how much screen time you save per day. And kind of find how to navigate that and get to that portal. You can figure it out, search, what have you. But when you're in other devices that you authenticate or you one
Yeah.
the year, then you got to go do it again, and not exactly as savvy as to where to find that. Like,
Right.
the tickets they got to be put in for anybody, or they just don't want to use the network then.
Sure.
And that's not a good experience. Or
Yeah,
not a good spot to
and
be.
some have to use that. You don't have a choice. Like
Yeah.
if you're a student in a dorm that needs to study and you need internet access to do that,
Right.
you need to be on the
But
network.
it's viewed as there's something wrong with the network. They don't view it as, oh, I got it. No, because they don't have to do that at home probably. So they view it as an issue in their dorm residence.
And that
hall.
issue's help desk. Now you got raised help desk
bad
calls. Yeah,
experience.
the whole thing's bad.
Okay. So how do we fix it?
Great question, Mike. So we covered the most basic way to do it. So there are other ways to onboard devices without using MAC addresses. So Aruba specifically has a couple different mechanisms to handle this. So both mechanisms are covered in a product called CloudAuth. So in Aruba Central, we have this thing called CloudAuth, which we can tie CloudAuth into our IDP or our users' repositories. So we can allow users to go to a URL or scan a QR code or give them easy ways to get to this portal one time. Where let's talk about it from I guess an employee view first. Let's not talk about. So let's
Do you
talk about
want
employees.
to, real first for those who aren't familiar with what CloudAuth is a feature, do you want to talk to that? Is it like, and we talked about it's kind of like NAC, like CloudAuth within Aruba Central?
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting into now.
Am I just stepping? Cool. Okay.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So CloudAuth is an authentication platform provided by Aruba Central that has a couple different features. The first feature is looking at it from an employee standpoint is being able to give a portal for the user to enter their credentials one time. That could be Azure credentials, Google credentials, Okta credentials, so that the portal now knows who the user is and walk through a small wizard to automatically deploy the SSID that they're going to connect to and supply a TLS certificate. So that device, instead of a normal captive portal they log into and caches that MAC address, we don't care about the MAC address. The portal is providing them with a unique certificate that identifies them as who they are. So they went through the portal one time. We have a certificate that we're now using for authentication, and it configured the SSID on the device for them.
Okay.
So now they're connecting securely. We don't care what the MAC address is. We know who the users are on our network. We can apply policy to that to say, maybe employee is in IT and they get VLAN XYZ and they get internet access, but employee that's in finance, they get maybe, more access to the production network.
So you're defining the role of that person rather than the MAC address of the device.
Yeah, so we're essentially doing NAC, same thing like
Yep.
ClearPass would do, but it's maybe a scaled down version of that. Right now we'll get into some more robustness later on in the conversation, but that is one method to get around randomized MAC addresses for employees. Okay. So option two. So from a student standpoint, they usually have multiple devices because you think about res halls, dormitories, and this could also apply to like multi-dwelling units where, maybe an apartment complex is giving common Wi-Fi to everybody, where, they, same thing, captive portal, remember your device, who they are. So the other piece of CloudAuth is to pop a captive portal, again, enter credentials, so the captive portal knows who you are, and it's going to provide a passphrase. And you can do this from any of your devices, right? So you get this passphrase, it's words or randomized letters. There's a couple different options there. And that passphrase you use on all your devices. So just like the pre-shared key networks back in the day, it's actually using MPSK in the background. So, but you're issued a unique pre-shared key or a unique passphrase that I'm now going to put on my iPhone and on my printer and on my Apple TV, all my devices, so that now we are connecting with a passphrase instead of it's for to remember who we are instead of the MAC address.
Okay.
So the MAC address can be randomized. It doesn't matter because the passphrase is what's uniquely identifying us.
Is that something you have to change every couple weeks? Because obviously randomized MAC addresses, they set that every 2 weeks. You have to change something. Can you just set that personal password, personal PSK?
Yeah. So it gets issued to you, and it's yours for indefinitely unless you want to go reset it. Maybe you gave it to somebody, you gave it to a boyfriend, broke up with the boyfriend. I don't know why you do that, because a boyfriend should be able to generate his own. Maybe he wasn't a student.
That's a good example. Hey, it's all right.
So yes, you can go generate another one, but the passphrase that you've assigned to all your devices is yours, and it's for whatever the terms are set in the portal. And what's really cool about this is that not only did we give just one unique passphrase you can put on your devices, you went through onboarding one time, got this one-time passphrase, you put on all your devices, but those devices, because that passphrase is known to you, can see each other at a layer 2 visibility level.
I'm still laughing at your IT intimacy example. I'm laughing at that.
So follow along here. So we have all of the devices that are in our dorm room that I can see all my own devices, but I can't see my neighbor's devices. So it's a little private network. So it's my own personal little wireless network. It's the same SSID that everybody's using. It's the same VLAN I'm being dropped on that every other student's using.
All the security policies, everything attached are the same.
But it's more. It's microsegmentation now at layer 2 that I can see all my own devices. I can share my screen with my Apple TV. I can see my printer, but I can't see the kid in the dorm next to me. He can do all those same things, but you can't see my devices.
Little pockets of the network.
Yeah, little personal wireless networks.
Nice.
So that's what they're calling it, is PWN, personal wireless networks that give that ability, which is really, really cool. So now you got 2 mechanisms. So one onboarding portal that can either, again, issue certificates to identify you, and or you generate a passphrase so that you use it on all your devices. So a couple different solutions there.
Is there any limitations? I'm thinking about WPA3 devices versus WPA2 that we've talked about before.
Great question.
Because some and I keep going to universities. Some universities have like devices that will not authenticate just because the network's not operating in WPA3 level. Therefore, just like, don't bring these devices. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Does that fix that issue?
No, it doesn't. Okay. But it's not, don't bring these devices, they're not going to work. So WPA3 does have what we call a transition mode that can fall back to WPA2 to support legacy devices. Now, really, really old devices, they can have a problem with it. They can choke on it. So it is a problem for the industry to enable WPA3 on your networks without knowing what's connecting your network or in what kind of legacy devices you're going to connect. But it's going to be few and far between on these really older devices that can't support WPA3, right? Okay. And we're taking this conversation in a complete different direction, but just to wrap that up real quick, you would move those devices over to a WPA2 network to support them. And what kind of brings us full circle is that I mentioned that that personal passphrase that you get, that uses MPSK in the background, and the MPSK, so the multi-pre-shared key, uses WPA2 only. So it doesn't even use WPA3. It can't. It's not. It's the standard doesn't provide support for WPA3 yet. So that's a good point. The industry is working on it as a whole to be able to use MPSK networks with WPA3.
Okay.
So that network is WPA2, hence supporting all those legacy devices. Right. But yeah, so we always want to go in the direction of higher security, and WPA3 will get us there. And that problem will be solved.
Okay. Very good. Are there any other options we have here?
There's
we got through 1 and 2.
Yeah, so those are the big ones. You could, for guest captive portals, you could just get rid of the captive portal. So if you think about what is the captive portal doing, the captive portal, if it's just a terms of service, it's really for legal liability reasons.
It's covering your butt. For guests, but they're also on the guest network.
Yeah. And is it? So what's covering your butt? So if I connect to your network and I do something malicious, let's say I launch a hacking attack off your guest network and it shows your public IP, are you responsible for that? And because you put up a splash page that made them click to say, I understand that if I do nefarious things that you're not responsible for that activity. Those are all like, regulations, like legalities in, city, state, federal, whatever those are. And those aren't the same everywhere. I think the general concept is, well, let's be safe than sorry, and then put up a splash screen that says we're not liable for what you do on the network. So click that box so that you're saying that whatever you do, we're not responsible for it.
We made an effort. Yeah.
But again, if you look at some of the local legalities, like we have a healthcare system here in Cleveland, a very, very large one, that has dissolved their captive portal. They have done the research to say that we're not legally responsible for somebody doing something anyway, regardless if we put up a little thing that has a check mark box, because that's meaningless. So they've gotten around the randomized MAC address problem for their guests that come on their network, especially the ones that are there for days. You know, they're in the hospital, so they don't have to pop that captive portal. You know, in some devices, could be every day. So, yeah, that's the other way we can get around it. I'm not saying that's for everybody. You know, but short of either removing the captive portal so you don't have to remember that MAC address, or onboarding a device with pre-shared keys or certificates, you know, you don't have a whole lot of other options there.
Okay. I keep thinking of the guest network because it is just like, I don't know the compliance standards. Not a lawyer. I don't get that.
Right. I'm not either.
But I wonder, because sometimes our customers will set up that captive portal, but ask for login and the password, and just make sure they gather information from that person.
And a lot of times that information could be spoofed. You just put in whatever you want. You know, seriously.
Yeah,
like, think about it.
Right.
Think about it when you've been at a ballpark or something. You're like, I just want on this thing. And you just put in whatever you can put in to get on the network.
I'm too honest. I just put my stuff in.
Well, that's great. And
then I get all the marketing emails.
Yes. And you get and some people want it. Like, sometimes I'm in an organization where, like, I do want to get some of your content. So, yeah, I don't mind giving some personal information. I mean, there are guest captive portals that require sponsorship. So as soon as I fill that out, I got to wait for somebody to approve me. And this randomized MAC address breaks all of everything we're talking about. So even if I did that, I fill out the captive portal, my sponsor approved me, I'm still remembered by my MAC address. And as soon as that rotates on my device, if I hadn't manually shut it off, which nobody's ever going to do that, it's going to pop again, and I'm going to have to re-register, get approval, and what a hassle that is.
It helps with spoofing on the guest network of using some random email, unless they have multi-factor set up for guests. You know, who knows?
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
not a lot.
Yeah, you could do that. There is SMS type of notifications that could be your trigger. That I enter my stuff in, but still, it's going to tie back to a phone number. And how many businesses are going to look at a phone number and say, well, somebody put in the bogus name. I got their phone number. When they call them up and say, why did you give me a bogus? I mean,
I'm not going to call them, just reject them.
Come on. I mean, you just got to kind of think through why we're popping captive portals, what kind of information you're gathering. Is the information real? Yeah.
And why are they doing that? Yeah, it's a lot of effort for something that they just like, all right, well, this, let them on the guest network. And not spend all this, time spinning through all this and make sure it works the right way. Fair enough.
Yeah, and captive portals can be complicated as well. So
and for some organizations, it's very necessary, and on the production level. But just again, the guest network
again, very necessary. Universities that need to onboard their student devices, and now that's all going to break.
And we gotta be ready for that.
Yep.
Okay, we got our 3 options. Is that it? Are we done with that?
I think so. Here, I've got notes in front of me.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you could stand up with just an MPSK network all on its own and hand out pre-generated, pre-shared keys. It's not really an option.
But that personal wireless network, like, that's interesting.
Yes, that one's really, really cool. Again, a simple onboarding mechanism. I mean, if you're in Aruba Central today, this is at no cost to you. You're already getting with a subscription. So it's already there, ready to go. You just need to, again, spin it up and then provide either the URL to your students or a QR code. Careful with QR codes, because some other student might go to the QR code and put some malicious stuff over it. QR codes can be dangerous.
Okay. Okay. I'm not in the spoofing QR code world.
Yes, but some people are.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll promote, your Black Mirror season 7. There's an episode where he spoofs a QR code and pretty much takes the world down.
Those are podcasts?
No, it's a TV show.
A TV show? Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Apparently I live in the podcast world too much. Gotcha.
But yeah, I guess the point being is we need to get the URL so they can pop that captive portal to do the onboarding one time. Get either their certificate or get their personal passphrase, and done. And
sounds like bonus content.
Sure. Yeah. It would be a really quick video to spin up. I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll post that.
That makes sense. Cool. Awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah.
We get through it all?
I think so.
You got on your notes?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Very good. Thanks everybody for listening. We got a busy week. Phil, heck, next week. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yep.
And
come see us.
Yeah.
Please.
Come find us down at University of Cincinnati, May 14th, 15th, and 16th. Find us on site there. I'll be hanging out all day as a Diamond sponsor each day, and the Vendor Expo on Thursday. Can't wait to see everybody next week, and then Discover soon after that.
Yeah. Discover's going to be a good one too. So we'll talk more about that in future episodes. But HPE Discover, where HPE and Aruba get together with vendors, and breakout sessions for all the different products. It's always a good time. I mean,
yeah.
I learned something there every time.
Yeah,
for
very
sure.
valuable time.
And just a fun time in general,
That's
being in
good stuff.
Vegas and hanging out with our customers and fellow employees.
And getting to bed on time.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
trying to.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining. This has been the Network Buzz, the Lake Tech Podcast. Find us on Apple Podcasts. Take a listen. Thanks so much for your time, everybody. Talk to you soon.